You held me in your arms and wiped away my tears. Not even in a million years can I ever repay you for what you've done for me. You were there when I felt that there was no place for me. You were there to show me how to truly believe in the miracle of creation, in the good and the bad. Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Outstanding Parents. I'm your host, Nazir bin Nasib. And alhamdulillah, I'm very excited about this because we're going to be able to speak deeper and I'm going to ask you to become a farmer. Pretty much become a farmer. So probably didn't expect that, but it's okay, alhamdulillah. What I mean is we talked on the last episode about really planting good seed, and we gave some different strategies. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Now, we know the Prophet ﷺ said there's none amongst the Muslims who plants a tree or sows seed and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, but it is regarded as sadaqah for him. Though this is talking about physically planting a seed or trees and so on and so forth, well, we should be those same farmers for our children. We have to sow good seed in them, so that's a sadaqah as well. Now, the most important thing we can do for our children, the most and number one important thing we can do for our children many times has eluded a lot of Muslim parents. And this is what I'm going to say. This is my opinion. The most important thing we can do as parents is to help establish our children's Islamic identity. That's it. Because surely success is only with Allah Ta'ala. The ultimate goal we have as parents for our children should be that they get to Jannah. We understand the hadith that talks about, where the Prophet ﷺ talks about the 3 deeds that you can receive after death. That means after your book is closed for your personal deeds, you still can get rewards after you're gone. SubhanAllah. What are those 3 things? We know, all right, money that you spent, fi sabilillah, money that was spent in the cause of Allah Ta'ala that continues to benefit the people after you're gone, you get barakah. That goes on your scale of good deeds. Knowledge that you have left, that you've invested in people, for example, that continues to benefit people, alhamdulillah, your barakah, your scale continues to weigh down heavily on the good side, inshallah. The third thing, though, that third thing is a righteous child that prays for you. Righteous is the key word. Not just any child, but a righteous child that prays for you. That dua will be accepted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as barakah on your scale of good deeds. So these are 3 ways that we want to benefit after we're gone, right? We want to spend fi sabilillah and receive barakah as it benefits people. We want to share beneficial knowledge, of course, starting with our families. And we want to have the righteous children pray for us after we're gone. So this part here is twofold. Of course, you want your children to have ultimate success, but you also want it as well. Well, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala has given us an opportunity to use our children as a bridge to Jannah. What if that child lasts another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years after we're gone, and they're righteous? And we help to establish that. And they're making dua for us every single day or after every salah. SubhanAllah, the barakah that we can receive. So we should be running towards planting these seeds. We should be running towards strengthening our children and building up this character within them. So let's talk about it, because the most important thing, I've heard a number of different stories when I talk to parents. Some say, the most important thing is I want them to be successful, but they have a different idea of what success is. Some say, they'll be successful if they get into this university. They'll be successful if they marry this sister from back home and their family's wealthy. Well, successful to me means Jannah. Jannatul Fardos, any part of Jannah. We want them to be truly successful because we are here an extremely short amount of time. And I think that you'll probably agree with me, right? Inshallah. All right. Now, how does this apply to us today when it comes to planting these seeds? Well, one thing is that we have to show our children how Islam is still relevant today. Not that it's not. We know that it is. However, our children get a perception that it isn't. They get it from the media, they get it from news, they get it from what's cool or what's not cool, they get it from different billboards, they get it from the tight clothes, they get it from this person or that person or whatever they want to say. They get it from a number of different places. That Islam, oh, it's back in the day to say, oh, the Muslims want to go back to the dark time, dark ages and stuff like that, when we have our dark ages, subhanAllah, is now. All right, the Muslims in the golden ages when Europe was in the dark ages, when Europe was doing things backwards. And it's funny because the Renaissance would not have been allowed except that non-Muslims had went to Al-Andalus and saw the beauty and were inspired by what happened and took knowledge back and started their Renaissance to come out of dark ages. So if our children don't know this, remember, we're that confidant. We have to be able to tell them historical facts, not historical fiction. Right? So since that's our job, we must show them how Islam is still relevant to this day. We can easily compare and contrast societies. We could talk about societies like during the time of the Prophet, except Islam and Jahiliyyah. What did they do? Oh, they were drinking all the time. They were drunk, right? So they were getting high. They were drinking a lot. And they were heavily involved in poetry. The Arabs knew poetry that go back and back and back and were well known for their long memories. Well, today, lots of poetry goes on, a lot of rap, a lot of music, same types of lifestyle. A lot of promiscuity was going on back during the time of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. They used to make tawaf naked. That shows you the level of degradation that was going on at that time. And it doesn't matter if we talk about nude beaches today or what's on TV, what's on radio. Come on, look at the comparison. We have to show our children the difference between Jahiliyyah and Islam. We show them the glory of this deen, and we show them Jahili. We show them how the first generation of Muslims, where the Prophet ﷺ said, the best generation is my generation. Then those that follow them, and then those that follow them. Well, that very first generation, subhanAllah, they didn't always have Islam. They came from Jahili to Islam. And it is very interesting to note that a lot of Muslims who accept or embrace Islam understand the stench of kufr. They understand what it is like and how it feels to come from kufr, which is all the way off, and to see the sweetness of Islam. So it hurts us a lot of times when we see Muslims who try to imitate the kuffar, or their children are being lost to Jahiliyyah. The children are trying to be who we used to be in Jahiliyyah. It is very sad. That's one of the reasons we created this entire Outstanding Muslim Parents program, to educate parents that care, to give them some proactive strategies on top of just the basic advice you get with, hey, send your child to a Muslim school. Make sure they're at the masajid. Make sure they go to Sunday school. Interestingly enough, now I can see the wisdom in how I grew up, because I grew up in a religious school, kindergarten, 10th grade through high school and stuff like that. And I see the same type of thinking in Muslim parents today that were in my parents back then. They thought the school was going to go ahead and handle it. The school was going to create that character, and because you're around other Christians and so on and so forth, things will be fine because you're in church a few days a week and you're going there as a part of the school curriculum. It's okay. Well, subhanAllah, there's a huge difference between schooling and education. Huge difference between schooling and education. And we can't be so naive as parents to think we can hand our responsibility off to a Muslim school, especially Muslim schools that are in the West. I took my daughters out of the Muslim school in the West to homeschool them and to virtual school them because of the fitna that was going on in the schools. The same things I saw in high school as I was growing up, the sex, the drugs, the lewd talk, and so on, by the pastor's children, for example, those who are, they're supposed to be beyond that, if you will. They're supposed to be better educated than that. Is the same thing I see going on even in Muslim schools, subhanAllah. May Allah protect us from that. But it's happening. If we don't, as parents, recognize that this pull is so strong from the West that Muslim girls are getting pregnant in school, in high school and middle school, that's what's happening. So when planting these good seeds, we need to be serious. We need to have a plan. We have to have a system in place to move forward. Okay? This is very, very real, and it hurts to even say that because I know friends of mine whose children I knew either before they were even born or maybe they were 1 year old, and they grow older and they stray from Islam. And it's a progressive thing. Now, I've talked to some of the fathers before, like, you should probably consider doing this. You should probably consider doing that. It's better for you and your family in the long run. And, you know, subhanAllah, some things really didn't work out. And this is not easy, because I know Muslims that have made hijrah. They've left saying, you know, I need a more Muslim environment to be in so that my children are raised around Muslims. Well, alhamdulillah. Some of them doing okay, some of them not doing okay. All right, just because you're in a Muslim environment doesn't mean Muslims are acting according to Islam. Right? So we, again, have to come with historical fact, not historical fiction. So with that, let's talk about how we can talk and teach our children about good seed, if you will. One is talk about life before Islam and its similarities to today. Make that contrast that I just talked about. When we talk about the change that the Muslims had when it came to saying that the streets of Medina were flowing with wine, when they were drinking and so on and partying and everything, but when the ayah came down finalizing and making it clear the prohibition of khamr, this prohibition of alcohol, how some who had already drank it put their fingers in their mouths to throw it up to get it out of their stomachs. How others who heard the ayah, but they had it in their mouth, spit it out. How others went to pouring it all out, and that was it. It was done. That was enough. Yeah, there was a progression. But what happened? It affects some change. As we talked about the heightened emotional experience and accepting it, knowing this is from Allah Ta'ala, knowing that there's a punishment that's real, there's a reward that's real, then it affects behavior. And we'll talk about beliefs and values and how this goes into it. Now, also talk about the unique power of Islam and those that hated it vehemently. Those that hated Islam, but Allah Ta'ala opened up their hearts and their vision and they accepted Islam. Discuss those as we talked about Umar bin al-Khattab, Khalid bin Walid. Talk about those who went on the search for it. They were looking for something like Salman al-Farsi. Let's talk about these individuals to our children. Have a relationship with these companions. Build some love for them. Because the best generation is the generation of the Prophet ﷺ, those that follow them and those that follow them. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about another technique as soon as we come back from break. So I look forward to seeing you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad. Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk.
I could agree that institutional racism does exist, and to be precise, we should define institutional racism, and that is hidden or non-apparent racism within an organization or an institution. I have witnessed it, me being half Saudi. My last name is Arab, so when I moved to the States back in 2002, after the incidents of 9/11, I did face some racism.
I think it can be what you do, but in the sense of without thinking. The things you do naturally without having to stop and think, that just come out.
Okay.
You know, this innate nature of you, and how you think, and and the way you see things.
We can get your insights on the two different countries, inshallah, further on into this conversation. Mamadou, if I can come to you, what's your thoughts on institutional racism, especially in the UK? Do you think it's really prevalent there?
The way we live, it's kind of a combination of two things: our language, and then what we believe in. So if we have got a language without believing in something, so it will be useless. So we have to get like both things going together.
I'm calling your name. Oh, Allah. Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad.
Alhamdulillah, welcome back. Glad you stuck in with us. Now, alhamdulillah, here's the deal. There's another technique that I'm going to suggest, but this is not something to do. This is actually something not to do or to lessen up on if you're the type of person that does it. Now, many times, and I'm talking usually, this is about the teenage years or preteen years, when sometimes parents get what I call verbally religious. Verbally religious is if they don't like something, then it's, oh, Ya Allah. It's very, very dramatic or drastic. Though nothing is wrong with saying Ya Allah and calling on Allah Ta'ala. But we should do it sincerely. We should do it where it's not like, oh, I'm disappointed in this child, so Ya Allah. Because that also creates a neuroassociation. So now when your child hears, Ya Allah, you think about a mother not liking something, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to have anything that when it comes to Islam, your children don't like. We don't want to have it something where, now, mind you, children are going to be children. So I'm not just talking about generally, but I'm talking about something where we as parents are inputting something wrong. Okay, for example, my wife had a conversation with a sister, and someone asked the sister, she said, a non-Muslim, she asked, do you like wearing that, on your head? And the sister responded really quickly without thinking. She said, no, I hate wearing this on my head, but we have to do it. We're Muslims, and we go out and we cover and stuff, and, we respect it, but I hate to wear it. So after the conversation was over, my wife kind of put her to the side. She said, sister, you really shouldn't have said that to a non-Muslim. You should let her know, yeah, we do. This is part of our deen. This is what we do. We have, hayah. We have this shyness. We have this respect for this deen and respect for women. That's better to say than I hate wearing this, because now you're saying you're hating something from Islam, and it can cause a contradiction, and this non-Muslim will not understand that. Even though the sister's English wasn't that good, but when she used such strong words as I hate wearing this, it didn't sit well with my wife. So she spoke to her about it. Alhamdulillah, she understood, and she hadn't said it again as far as we know of. So it's important that we do not dislike or plant the seed of dislike for anything Islamic, even if we don't understand some things. So that's very important. Don't be cryptic with it. Oh, well, we're living in our last days and just dragging your head down and so on. We don't want to do that. No. Well, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala gives us hope. Yes, we're in the last days. We know the Prophet ﷺ said from his time to Yawm al-Qiyamah is like this. We know this. But make sure we aren't setting those negative neural pathways up in our children's mind. When they hear something, then it's a problem. If, for example, let's say they're getting in trouble on a punishment, and they're getting in trouble, and as you're yelling at them, they hear the Quran in the background. So now every time they hear the Quran playing, they start thinking of when they got in trouble. It's how we're wired. We don't want to do that, so be careful of that. All right, be very, very careful of that. So again, talk about life before Islam, compare and contrast it to today. First technique. 2 is really discuss the unique power of Islam to effect change immediately upon someone, to take their heart from being hardened to soften. All right, and 3rd, don't be cryptic and really out of touch. And just as another example, before I accepted Islam, and my grandmother, she would hum hymns, old Christian hymns about depression and all kinds of stuff like that. And it was not something, old Christian religious hymns that were just out of touch. And it made me recognize this big gap between us. And I didn't like it. She liked it maybe or whatever, but that wasn't something I was in touch with. So we shouldn't be creating that gap either. Okay, so alhamdulillah, I'm sure you understood what that means. Now, it's our responsibility to talk about and to help establish our children's identity. And we want that identity to use Islam as the filter. That means before they do anything, the first thing that comes to their mind is, what does Islam say about this? What is the hukm regarding this? That's where we want our children. We don't want our children, oh, sounds good to me, do whatever you want to do. That's what they do in the West. It's a carefree society. It's all Nike. Just do it. Right? We want our children to have that filter, especially when we're not around. Because if you are around, then it's pretty easy to go ahead and manipulate, well, I'm going to do this because I know my Abi is right here, my Umi is right here. I'm going to do this. They're watching. When Allah Ta'ala is the all-watcher. So when no one else is around and they make that right decision, they have that filter. So something comes in their head to do or to wonder or to question, and they have that filter right here of Islam. So before it comes out, it goes through this filter. Can I say this or can I do this? What does Allah Ta'ala say about this? Where's the proof? What is going on? We want to be able to have that filter and help establish it for our children, so that's how they begin to think. And we do this when it comes to the Seerah of Prophet Islam. The other part is that we must make sure we are controlling our own states. Our own states. And what I mean is our emotional state or our state of mind. Sometimes we talk about, if you're going to relax and breathe and get into a good state of mind, a good frame of mind, if you will. And it helps us relax physically and mentally. We have to control our state. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La taghdab," to control your anger. Control your anger. Not necessarily don't get angry, but to control it. So here's the thing. If you're a parent that continually yells all the time, something goes wrong, oh, I can't do this or can't do that. Why are you doing this? I don't know why. I told you not to. that type of thing, children become desensitized to it over time. What would happen if you got upset, your children know you're upset, something's not done properly, and you were quiet, and you decide to change your approach? That kind of shocks them to see something different. It changes their pattern, but it also shows more control and self-discipline on your part. That gets their attention more than going off and yelling because they're used to that. Oh, mom yells all the time, it's just what she does. Well, why be that person when you could be the one that's controlled, calm, collected, and have more influence and break your child's pattern for what they're doing? It's amazing how that works, because when someone does something so many times, we begin to expect that of them. Whether it's a parent yelling, child not making their bed, or whatever situation is, we expect them to behave in what we've seen in the past. So when they do something different, it catches our attention. And when it catches our attention, that's when change can be made. So if it catches your child's attention that you're doing something different than you normally do, that's when you interject something. That's when you control yourself. We have so many examples of the Prophet ﷺ where he controlled himself in situations that could be very, very explosive, if you will. I remember Aisha radiallahu anha had knocked a plate of food out of his hand that was sent from one of his other wives. And the Prophet ﷺ smiled. He smiled, bit down, started cleaning up, said, this is from the jealousy of your mother. Mu'mineen, ya Aisha radiallahu anha. So the Prophet ﷺ can control his anger in these types of situations. That's our example, our model. With that, being controlled means we have self-discipline. And what are we doing? We're being that celebrity. We want to exhibit that self-discipline. We don't want to go in public, and that's when you exhibit that you have self-discipline, but at home, you don't do it. In public, you pray, but at home, you don't pray. Make your house a graveyard. Everybody prays separately. No, we don't want to do that. Again, we want to practice what we preach, so we're not being hypocritical. Again, all of these things are very, very important. And as that coach, we want to be able to manipulate the situation in the best manner possible for our children. So if I have to get quiet, change my approach on something because my son is whining or complaining, or my daughter doesn't like this, or now there's some sibling rivalry going on, now they're fighting. In the meantime, I tell them to cool down. Tell them to inhale and breathe properly. It's funny because there's such a thing as breathologists and breathology, and they study breathing and how it really works with our chi. But nevertheless, for example, if you're the type of person that really has to get control of your anger, the very first thing you should do is slow down. The Prophet ﷺ let us know when he talked about our emotion of anger. To, if you're angry, you stand up, sit down. You'll sit down, lay down. Make wudu because shaitan runs through our veins. We know these tips, right? He's changing. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us to control our states, to control our emotional states of being. We have the same opportunity when it comes to our children. We can break their patterns or interrupt them. Have you ever had the opportunity to be on a phone call? It's a good phone call, having a great discussion, but somebody else calls. So you click over, you speak to them, and you talk about whatever you can talk about, and you come back to the first person, and you can't remember what you talked about, nor can the other person. All right, that's called a state change. That's called a pattern interrupt, if you will. That means something happened and interrupted your pattern. You forgot. Well, we can utilize the same thing with our own behavior and others. So influencing our children doesn't have to be so crazy. Now, if you're the type of individual like myself, I'm rather calm and cool. I don't really raise my voice often. But if I do raise my voice, and I'm at home and raise my voice to my children, it gets taken very seriously. I usually just have to give a look. And some of you know what I'm talking about. You give a look to your child, and that's enough. See, when you set standards and expectations, and we're going to be talking about that in different episodes, how to actually do it. But when you set certain standards, your children will test you. They will try to go up past it. They will go over it. If you set a line in the sand, they'll try to step on it. They'll go over it. They'll tap dance. They'll moonwalk on it. They'll do a lot of stuff. Well, we want to be able to set standards so that they're strong. So we want to have these standards there that, my children don't talk back to me. They don't talk back at home. That's uncommon. So if they see some of their friends or other people in other people's homes, they have different standards. They might argue with their child to do something. And if I ask my children, say, I need you to get this for me. Please bring that here. They go do it. So they were laughing one time. They were discussing amongst themselves. I heard my daughters talking about one of their friends, and the mother asked them to do something, and the child said, wait, just wait a second, I'm doing this, and blah, blah, blah. And they look like, oh my goodness, are you serious? Did you just talk back to your mother? Different sets of standards. It's easier and best to set standards while they're young, so they know where they are, don't come near them, or get corrected when they come near them as they get older. It is more difficult when that cranium starts solidifying in those teenage years and these neural pathways get deeper on their brains and their connection. They feel this independence and almost arrogance, if you will. Now, of course, we talked and discussed on different strategies how to break their pattern, keep your state, and practice these different tools. Well, the question is, going to the next section, what are we going to do about our beliefs, our values, and our references? We're going to put that all together for you to help you become an outstanding Muslim parent. And we're very excited about it, alhamdulillah, because these tools are needed more now than ever. Think about it. When was the last time, or has it ever happened when you were a child, your parents pulled over to make a phone call on a cell phone? Probably not, didn't have cell phones. You know, or recording television channels and satellite channels from all over the world, pausing it, catching it when they're there, or going right online and watching replays of it. We didn't have that. It was bad enough with the technology we had at the time, but the instant gratification and access to anything, and cleaning browser histories and hiding it from parents and putting it under different passcodes and accounts. It's amazing. So it's important that we help reveal this information to you and different strategies. And inshallah ta'ala, you benefited today from the information that you got. Again, remember that a wish changes nothing, but a decision changes everything. So take action on this information as soon as you can. We appreciate you tuning in. Jazakumullahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's Nazir bin Nasib signing off. Masalama.
My world was crumbling down, and you tried your best to shelter me from the coming of the storm. You opened my eyes to see that all hope was not gone. You held me in your arms and wiped away my tears. Not even in a million years can I ever repay you for what you've done for me. You were there when I felt that there was no place for me. You were there to show me how to truly believe in the miracle of creation, in the good